Hi, my name is Seth. I'm with HH Catamarans. I'm joined today by Nigel Calder, a man who needs a little introduction in the marine electrical industry. Nigel, thank you for joining us today. With all of the focus on new 48-volt electric systems and electric propulsion systems, we thought we'd like to talk to you just about what HH has done in our early boats while using these new systems. And since you literally wrote the book on marine diesel electronics, we appreciate you joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's actually not that new, what you're doing.
Right.
But there's no volume in the market. So in a sense, it's great to see you doing this, but you're not taking that big a risk, to be quite honest. I mean, you're obviously building cutting edge boats anyway. They're all carbon fiber. They're highly optimized. They're wonderful boats. So I think it's highly appropriate that you should be testing this new technology and pushing it forward.
We're going to dig into that and more. I think we're going to geek out today. It's going to be a little bit of a technical talk about these systems in the future, but we really appreciate it. We're also going to be joined by a man named Jim Cote, who you and I have both spent time with on our boats in Florida. And he's probably the industry expert on stray currents. So I know you're very, maybe you can talk a little bit about your involvement with ABYC, what ABYC is, but we hired you and Jim to come and look at our installation, because I would agree with you, the installation of our hybrid has actually been working quite well, but and there's been learnings about it, but it's really the electrical system install where I think we just did discover we had to make some improvements and changes. And HH, we're not going to pretend we're perfect right out of the gate on this, but the reason we're talking with you guys today and the reason we hired you was having you help reassure us and our customers and the industry that this is the right way forward. Maybe let's get Jim on the line, because I'd love to get at kind of the crux of the point of the video today, which is we had a scare on one of our boats that we had stray current. So let's get the stray current expert on the line.
Well, let me just say a couple of words about that first, because I first got called in on this project by one of your customers.
Yes.
And they were very concerned with those videos that the winds are gone with the winds. What made with the problems on their boats, and they did have problems, there's no question about it, but they attributed all of those problems to stray corrosion. And I watched a couple of those videos where they're illustrating the problems they've got. Right off the bat, I said, this is not stray current corrosion. It just didn't fit the sort of mode of how stray current corrosion eats stuff up and destroys hardware and so on. And so there was, right from the very beginning with these videos, there was a substantial misunderstanding of what was going on and the problems on the boat, and I'll let Jim dig into that because that's his specialty. But you did not have stray current corrosion on those boats.
Yes, and I'd love to hear more about that as well. And just trying to let everybody know kind of what we learned through this research. And you're right, by the way, we're not paying you today for this video. You're not sponsored by HH. All of these opinions are that of your own. And you did come to us with a customer first, and we said, you know what, it's the best thing we could do would be to hire folks like yourself and folks like Jim to help us sort this out. So let's get him on the line.
All right.
Hey, Jim, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, sorry we couldn't get you here in person, but we appreciate you dialing in by video. So, Jim, we hired you to investigate a stray current concern on one of our boats. Can you tell everybody just a little bit about your background and why you are considered the expert on stray currents in the United States?
I'm not about the expert, but my name is James Cote. I have a company called Cote Marine, LLC. I do electrical and corrosion control consulting, and I've done thousands of electrical surveys and corrosion surveys, performed or supervised, and so I've been doing this since 1981.
All right, well, you sound like the man for the job. Combined with Nigel, we think the two of you guys would really be able to help HH out with diagnosing what's happening and what concerns we have. So you, Jim, you got to spend time, I think it was about 45 hours or so, on 5 different boats of ours. You looked at a 44, you looked at 250s, you looked at a 52 and a 60. What did you find, and what were your thoughts on the boats that you inspected?
Well, when I first got called into this, the claim was that there was a stray current issue, stray current problems, and some people, I will use the term, were freaking out about it. I think the problem was that it was a carbon fiber hull, and they're very worried about any currents, and perhaps rightly so. But what I found, the primary thing is that the people making the diagnosis of a stray current and that being a problem were misdiagnosing the problem. They were measuring a circulating current because of a simple connection error.
Can you explain the difference between a stray current and a circulating current?
Certainly, a stray current is involved with the current flow through the water from the metals or from the carbon in the carbon fiber going through the seawater to another metal surface or another carbon fiber surface. A circulating current would be, for instance, the current from a DC grounding bus to an AC grounding bus when there is a jumper wire between them. They're normally installed side by side. The thing that HH Catamaran factory did, which I think was the root of all this confusion, was that they were actually using the zinc anode connection point as a ground bus connecting point. They had more than one ground bus connected to the zinc anode. Makes sense. I mean, keep the wire run short and keep everything simple and together. But unfortunately, when you do that, if you're measuring a wire connected to the 48-volt bus that says down to zinc and you measure a current there, you immediately assume that current you're measuring is flowing through the water. And I think that's where the misconception arose.
And how big of a difference, Nigel, Jim, is it to say straight current, circulating current? A lot of our owners consider them kind of the same thing. Are they? They're significantly different.
No, they're vastly different. You start putting, you were measuring at times 2 amps on that one conductor that Jim's talking to, going to the anode. If that 2 amps was going through the water, it would be eating up some hardware in a matter of hours. I mean, it would destroy it.
Like props and shafts.
Yeah, somewhere, whatever the positive side of that circuit is, it would be just destroying the metal.
Is that why, Nigel, you thought we didn't have straight current right away?
Well, and when both Jim and I looked at the original videos that were put up there by the winds, it just didn't look like straight current corrosion.
Okay.
And if it had been straight current corrosion, you'd have been eating fittings out of the boat at some point, and the boats would have been sinking.
Okay, but the boat wasn't perfect, to be clear, and so we did have these circulating currents. And Jim, how easy was that for us to solve?
Well, it's just going to be a matter of relocating interconnection points between the buses. The way the Catamaran is set up is that you've got a battery locker on the starboard side, and you have your 122 40-volt equipment locker on the port side. And rather than running a interconnection wire from one locker to the other, HH Catamaran made the decision to run the interconnection wires down to the zinc plate itself and use a stud on the zinc plate as the interconnection. Now, frankly, I didn't like that too much, but I didn't see any problem. And so I actually crawled down into that bilge space with my hand probe. And
we're going to put a picture of that up on the screen.
Right, that was a pretty small hole.
I think the pictures of my knees are out there someplace on the web. But the point is, I was very meticulous, and I was absolutely certain that there was no current flowing through the water. The thing you've got to realize, Seth, is that with the boats, it's not like a land-based installation. The grounding conductors are serving more than one purpose. They actually serve the purpose of corrosion prevention, AC short circuit protection, DC short circuit protection, among other things. And so you have to connect all these buses together to ensure that you do maintain the safety of the vessel and the people on board. And if you do that, there's going to be some current flows between the buses.
Great. And is it, what are the ABYC standards for circulating current? Like, is it common to have a tiny little bit on there, or and that's what the zincs are for, or is it supposed to be 0?
No, you can never make it 0. I mean, I suppose I could, but that would be crazy difficult. That'd be a space shuttle Elon Musk level science to do that, and there's no need for it. There's absolutely no need for it. I will say that the way it was connected with using the zinc stud as the connection point, that is not ABYC compliant. But you are correcting that, and you will no longer do that in the future.
Yeah, we've gone back and retrofitted all of our boats now, all the 44s that have been launched, and have made the changes to the boat that you saw. So we're down to, I think it was like 0.2 0.2 amps of circulating current.
That's better than I would hope if it's at 0.2 amps. That's fantastic. That's great. I mean, the lesson for me out of this is don't have a layperson take a test and then start fixing things based on the layperson's conclusions of their tests. Just, okay, you've got the issue, call in an expert such as Nigel and say, look, we're reading this, what do you think? And that way you can go ahead and actually use science and the scientific method to figure out exactly what's going on.
Right.
But just to grab all these, symptoms, this, that, the other thing, and straight current. I think that's where people start to, don't want to use the term panic, but as close to panic as you can, not acting rationally in the problem solving.
Thank you for that. And I think at this point, some viewers are probably going to go, well, what about the zinc anodes, and what about the sludge in the coolant that we also saw on one of our boats? Do you think that was straight current, or what do you diagnose that as?
No, I tested the engine. First of all, just to prove it wasn't straight current, we did thoroughly test the engines, go above and beyond what I would think would be normal and typical testing to prove there's no straight currents on that engine. But that sludge is typical of what happens when you mix the two different types of coolant. There's two types of coolant for typical diesel engines and gasoline engines. And if you mix them up, they turn into that brown sludge. It happens. Right. The corrosion on the engine zinc, pattern of corrosion on the zinc lens is completely consistent with what would be expected from a velocity attack. The zinc is a fairly soft metal. It will erode as well as corrode, and so it just needs to be placed in a different part in the water stream, or perhaps use a soft iron anode, which would last longer. And I think I heard tell about the stainless steel anchor chain being corroded and how that must be straight current, but now it's turning out that the vessel operators are storing the chain without rinsing the salt deposits off, and you have stainless steel laying in the bottom of a locker encrusted with salt deposits. It's going to rust.
Well, thank you, Jim. Any final thoughts for us on kind of the future of these complex electrical boats and what buyers of yachts should be considering, and what you saw on our HH?
Yeah, I think you all are on the cutting edge. I think carbon fiber is going to be one of the technologies that's going to take over the marine market in the next decade or so, and it's good to see that you all are involved with it. I'll say the workmanship on your boats is quite good. In fact, some areas it's over the top with what you're all doing. I mean, I certainly would not do it, would not spend the money and time to do that, but that's a business decision on your part.
We'll do another video on that one next time.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. But I think like I said, the moral of the story is, if you think you have a problem, don't try to self-diagnose it. Actually call in an expert. I mean, if I have a pain in my side, I'm not going to start self-diagnosing whether I have cancer or appendicitis. I'm going to go see a doctor about it.
We appreciate you spending all the time on our boats and taking the time today to talk to us about what you found, and thank you for your guidance and helping ensure that we're pointing in the right direction.
No problem, Seth, and good seeing you again, Nigel. I hope to see you again soon.
Yes.
Hopefully not too soon. Not on one of our boats. All right. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Jim mentioned the issues with carbon fiber hulls, and actually partly as a result of the work that he and I did on your boat. We've just added a whole new section to the ABYC E11 standard for carbon fiber hulls, because we realized we don't have enough language in the principal electrical standard to cover these hulls.
Jim mentioned carbon fiber is going to be used more and more and more.
Yeah.
You agree with that statement?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Would you, if you're a buyer, would you be fearful of it, or would you be adopting it?
No, but you need to have the builder that has been used to using it. And you guys have been doing this for quite a while now. You have more experience than most builders in dealing with carbon hulls and carbon decks.
Yeah.
But it does require a very different attention to detail to what you'd have with a fiberglass.
So Nigel, would you recommend, if you were a buyer of a catamaran today, would you try to buy a fiberglass boat, or would you be looking at carbon fiber boats?
Well, if you've got the money,
It is a little more
we all
expensive.
know carbon's expensive. No, carbon's a fabulous material. I mean, it's way stronger and lighter. It's a wonderful boat building material.
All right, so Nigel, do you think HH is poised? Are we in a good position where now we've learned from all of these early developments, all these new technologies that we're putting in our boats? And if the whole industry is doing this, do you think that that's going to be a common thing, that everyone's going to stumble and learn from their own installations? And is HH positioned well?
Well, to some extent, they're going to learn from your
Right.
right.
Yeah, from this
It's
video,
always-
probably.
What's it? The pioneers are the ones with the arrows in their backs. But yeah, no, the technology is great. You've been doing it for a long time, and just going to a 48-volt system and a hybrid propulsion system is not that big a step, actually. This technology
Right.
is already there. You made some rather simple mistakes, and not a lot of them either, just one or two. And in particular, that one connection on the boat, which was just plaguing you for months. And then all of the misdiagnoses that Jim talked about, because people would get a reading off that conductor of 1-2 amps and immediately jump to the conclusion it was going out into the water. And then they're looking for all the wrong answers.
Right. Right.
And the minute he crawled in there and we actually confirmed that we were getting that couple of amps on that conductor going through that circuit, we knew we basically had the core problem
Right.
at that point.
Right. Would you, given everything that we're doing now, would you recommend HH? Do you? This is again your
Right.
own opinion,
Right.
and you're
Right.
welcome to your opinion. But
I-
do you like what we're doing?
I've always liked your boats. Yeah, I had no problems saying that. As far as I can see, the issues are fixed.
Yeah.
Only time will tell. Maybe there's something
Right.
else that we didn't find.
I'm sure we'll.
But
keep
I'd be surprised if there were other gremlins in the system because your wiring is beautifully done. Your wiring diagrams are terrific. It's a really high level of design and input here.
Great.
And then what you basically did, you had a problem that you made worse by trying various fixes
Right.
and disconnecting a wire here, putting a DC to DC converter in there, and all because you were chasing the wrong problem.
Okay.
And so essentially what you had to do was take all that out and go back to where you started and change a couple of connections on the boat.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes it. Unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about.
The electrical system is basically, as I said earlier, is beautifully done. The overcurrent protection, the fusing, circuit breakers is all in the right places. You go over the top. I'm sure a number of the conductors on the boat are bigger than they need to be. You could probably get some copper out of the boat. So you're pretty conservative in the way you wire the boats, in terms of conductor sizing and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's been history of what we've learned from our previous time building gunboats and other boats.
Yes.
But yeah, it's good to hear and good to learn always.
So just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, I think it was kind of nuts of you to sell one of your first boats to an influencer with 600,000 YouTube followers, because there are always teething problems with a new model like this, especially one where you're putting a whole bunch of new technology on it, and you really want that boat to be perfect before you do that, and it got you into a lot of trouble. But the even bigger problem was the misunderstanding of the issues, and it's really been causing you an enormous headache ever since.
Yes, it has.
And I'm comfortable that you've got to the bottom of that, and there's going to be other teething problems, I expect. Small problems there always are with these boats.
Yeah.
But I'm really comfortable with the thought that you've got to the bottom of what was mistakenly attributed to the stray current corrosion, and whatever issues you've got left right now, if anything else surfaces, they're going to be minor issues.
Right.
And easy to sort out.
Yeah, it's an interesting position we've been put in, and I hope that our customers and our buyers can see that we care, that we're standing behind them, that we care deeply about the product design, and that we're doing continuous improvement so that every single boat is better than the one that we built before. And that if you were to buy a 44 today, you'd be hull 43. And that all of the improvements that we would have made from all those 42 boats ahead of it are going to go into that boat, and that you would feel confident that it's going to be a good boat.
Yeah.
Well, Thank you very much for your
You're
time
welcome.
today and for all the time and effort you've given us. We really appreciate all of your input and Jim's input, of course, as well. If you do have any more questions about this, viewers at home, of course, we're happy to answer any questions, and we're being very open about everything that we've done to try to make sure we're building the best boats that we can offer. So thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.